All right, hello and welcome everyone to the 40K Parley podcast. This is your host, Red, aka Red Dog, aka Ben. And today the podcast subject, it's going to be the real cost of playing Warhammer 40K. What does it really cost to get into this hobby? I debated whether to do this episode first or choosing an army first, but I feel if you do choosing an army first, you get a little excited and you start doing a lot of homework, and I mean it could lead you to buy a bunch of stuff and not realize what you're getting into, and it could overstimulate you a little bit and guide you in the wrong direction. So I think the real place that we need to start this, book 1, chapter 2 needs to be, what is the real cost of playing 40K? Once again, it's a 3-step process. Is this Warhammer 40K? And it comes down to building, painting, and playing. And in order to build, you have to purchase the minis. And that's where it all begins. What order should you purchase things in? I think a combat patrol is probably the best place to start. I'm not going to say don't do your homework and don't pick an army. Like I said, we're gonna do that episode too. I think that picking an army and doing homework and research on that is really kind of in tandem with you buying. You don't want to spend all this money on something if you don't want to, if you're not going to get exactly what you want out of it. That's for sure. I certainly did my homework before I spent any money on this hobby. I downloaded some PDFs and I read through them before I started even looking at prices. And then I went online and looked at some resources, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of good videos out there for things like lore, and I mean, not every nook and cranny of the 40K universe has an entire episode on it, but I mean, a lot of stuff is mentioned, and if it's in a codex, chances are someone's talked about it on a podcast. But back to the price. So, good jumping off point is the combat patrol. After I had done my homework and done my research, I decided that I was going to buy the Eldari Warhammer Combat Patrol. So, in the store, I think it's $150 at Games Workshop. Also, any prices I mention on the podcast are USD. If my complete and utter lack of an accent due to the fact that I live in New England is any sign that I live in the USA, I would assume that's a dead giveaway. I bought my Combat Patrol, I think, off of Amazon for around $118. Its current listing for the Eldari Combat Patrol is $113 on Amazon. So that's pretty effing good, considering Games Workshop is charging $150. Just a couple other things to note. I mean, right now I'm looking on Amazon, and the Let's see, the Thousand Suns Combat Patrol is only $92. Let's see, what else? The Drukhari is $136. Let's see, Grey Knights, $136. Adepta Sororitas. Adepta Sororitas, $127.50. Well, I mean, they want to get that extra 50 cents for the Sisters of Battle there. Sorry, I'm going to mispronounce things in the podcast. Feel free to leave any pronunciation key you'd like in whatever dialect you think I should be pronouncing these words in. Clearly, I can't speak English, so it wouldn't matter either. Also, there's let's see, Tau Empires 136, Blood Angels is 133, Chaos Demons 132, Custodes 127, Leagues of Votan 134, Astra Militarum 136. So clearly you can get things for the combat patrols just a little bit cheaper. One thing of note, while you're looking at your armies and your combat patrols, just take a look at how many miniatures, that little number down in the left-hand corner of the box, where, like the Blood Angel says 15, Tau Empire 23, Sisters of Battle 27, Grey Knights 12, the Eldari 19. I think 19, 18, 20, 26, you're starting to, anything past 24, 25, I think you're getting into a very, I don't want to say complicated, but you're going to be spending a lot of time painting and a lot of time building, and depending on, like the orcs, for instance, are push fit, but there's a lot of intricacy in the orc model, so you may be spending more time painting than you really want or expect to. So there's something else to think about. But right now, like I said, let's get back to the cost a little bit. So, like I said, a combat patrol is a good place. Games Workshop thinks you should be paying around $150 for them. At the time, I think I bought it off of Amazon for, like I said, $118, and it's currently on Amazon for $113. Now, a combat patrol you can play on its own. There are ways to build most of them to close to 500 points. Some of them you can go ridiculously over with, and some of them are just a little underwhelming. There are plenty of YouTube videos on that. Feel free to look up, combat patrols versus values. I believe Auspex Tactics has an absolutely wonderful video on like what you get for every combat patrol. Definitely something worth watching if you're thinking about getting into this hobby. Other than listening to, my podcast or watching my podcast on YouTube, of course. So, so we'll just stick with, just that right now. We'll stick with just the 150, at the base. And like I said, you can get it. If you really wanted to play the Thousand Suns, you can get it for around $92.90. $93 right now. You can play Thousand Suns Combat Patrol. If you want to be cool like me and play the Eldari, you can spend $113. And you'll be way cooler because I paid $118, right? So just something else to think about. And that is, right around 500 points for the Combat Patrol. And Combat Patrol is its own game. It's not Incursion, which is the standard Warhammer 40K army type. I'm currently playing at 500 points, and I play Combat Patrol, and I just finished, in my last podcast, I believe I mentioned, I just finished painting Eldrad, who's the last 100 points of my Eldari army. So now I finally have 1,000 points, and, people can stop asking me, when are you going to get to 1,000? When are you going to get to 1,000? When are you going to get to 1,000? Because everybody wants to play at least here where I'm located, wants to play 1,000 points games. So that's something to consider as well. Where combat patrols are very good and introductory, but at some point you're going to want to get that, you're going to want to scratch that itch and get up to 1,000 points if you really want to get into this hobby. So let's talk about a couple other things. Let's get off the subject of the combat patrol for a bit, and let's talk about oh boy, the next big thing, paints. Because painting is the second, big part of the 3-step process: building, painting, playing. So paints, primer. After you get everything glued, and I'll go over the cost of glue and such later. But paints, first and foremost, is after, like I said, everything has been, clipped off the sprues and everything's been glued together, you're going to need to prime it. And some people use airbrushes. I am not at the level where I'm good enough with a paintbrush and a spray can to where I think I want to try and master an airbrush. So I'm currently still using spray can primer. And spray can primer from the GW shop, the hobby shops locally cost anywhere from $20 to $30. Usually like a more specialty primer like Lead Belcher will go for $30, where something like Wraithbone or White Scar primer, that'll go for around $20 to $23 generally at the hobby shops. And you're going to need a primer. You can prime with a brush. I do not recommend priming with a brush. It takes forever, and when you're still learning how to paint minis, you may not get the consistency right, and you may put too much on your palette or too little on your palette. You may not mix in the right amount of water. It may not stay moist, and you could really destroy a miniature model before you even really get a chance to paint it by trying to brush on a primer coat. So I would definitely recommend spraying it. I don't care if you use an airbrush, like that's up to you. I am not figuring an airbrush currently into any of the costs because I don't have an airbrush. And it's just, like I said, I still want to try. I still make mistakes when I use a spray can. And I'm still making mistakes when I'm using a brush. So until I really get good with those things, I think the airbrush is a little out of my reach. Spray cans, primers. Back to that. $20 to around $33 a can. I think for the base equation at the end, I'm going to leave it right at the $20 mark. Because you're probably going to want to either paint or prime your first few models. I would recommend either doing them in white or black. Black is something that's really good for showing shadows, but not so much things like skin tone. Whereas white is great for something like skin tone, but you're going to have to fill in, darker shades and shadows into your model. You're going to have to, build those up, whereas opposed to a black primer, you'd already have those things just put right on. I'll go over more of that when we get into the, painting process itself. Pots of paint. Wow. So I've had the smaller pots of paint cost around $5 generally. And certain stores will sell them for $6 to $7, and sometimes the technical paints can cost anywhere from $7 to $10. Also, there are certain paints that come in larger pots that you will pay $10 for, as opposed to paying $5 for, because you're literally getting double the amount of paint. Currently, I am only using Citadel paints. The reason being, it is easy to talk to other people in the hobby about the paints, what they do, the styles, what they used on their miniatures, the techniques they use with those paints. It's just an easy process to follow. The Games Workshop store locally has so generously provided us with free pamphlets so we can look at it and go through and check off the colors that we want and we like before we start putting them on our model. And ask questions too at your local store. You know, be like, hey, do you paint? What does this look like on a finished miniature? What kind of primer would you use if this was going to be your, base color? Simple things like that. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Other people want you in in this hobby. People have invested their time and their money, and their, like I said, like it takes time to paint. It takes time to learn to play this as well. And like by the end of this podcast, this episode, you'll see that it costs some money to play as well. So people have invested in this, time, money, and artistic revelations and freedoms too. I think that there's a lot of that. There's a lot of pride in like my Eldrad. I guess I just finished him. I think he's the best model I've painted. He's not going to win a Golden Demon award, but it's to me there's a certain amount of pride in building it, and knowing that that's the last. That's the I went from 900 to 1,000 by putting him in my army, and he looks amazing, and he's my warlord. All right. Anyways, back to painting. That's what we're talking about here. Sorry, I'm making all kinds of noise and banging things around. It's kind of a little bit of a wobbly table that I'm working with right now. All right, so paints, like the pots and Citadel miniatures. So anywhere from $5 to $12 usually for a pot of Citadel paints. And like I said, the benefits of using Citadel is that other people within the hobby use it as well. I would discourage someone from downloading the Citadel miniature painting app because I think it could discourage a new player from like when you see all the different shades and all the different colors and all the different details. And yeah, pros will do that. They'll sit down and they'll buy 20 paints just to paint a Farseer. I'm not going to, at least not where I am in the hobby. Not 4.5 months in. I'm not going to sit there and buy a cosmic array of Citadel paints to paint my Farseer. So how many, pots do you think you should get? I'd say if you buy a combat patrol, maybe 10 pots to get you started. Now, if you think $5 and 6 pots of regular paints, that's about $30 plus 4 technicals, which I'll go over what those are in the painting podcast. And you say about 4 of those at $7, we'll say $28. So 6 pots at $5 for 30 plus 4 technicals at 7 is 28. So for the primer, we'll say let's go 20. We'll say 20 for the primer, plus 20 for the paint pots. That'd be 48. And then let's see. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm doing this all wrong here. Sorry. Yep, I'm an idiot. Apologize. Primer, we'll go $20, and then we'll go paint pots, and then we'll do 6 at $5, $30, and then we'll do 4 technicals at 7, $28. So 20 plus 30 plus 28 equals 78. So it's around $78 in paint total. Just paint alone, $78. And that's giving you a variety. Quick suggestion. Games Workshop makes a Warhammer 40K paint set. There's a couple different ones. They have, let's see here. They have one for $38, and it's on Amazon right now. It's called the Games Workshop Warhammer 40K Paints and Tools Set Box. I bought one of these, and you'll understand why as I start talking about it. It comes with the pliers and a file tool, which you need. Those are two things that you need for the hobby. You don't have to get a pair of pliers for the hobby from them. You can go to a hardware store and spend $6 or $7 on I would buy a decent pair, not like a greasy pair at a bargain store. The file is a little bit harder to find, and the size of the sprue that comes with the Games Workshop Paint and Tools set box is absolutely wonderful. It just fits right in your hand, and it gets sprues right off your model very, very quickly. An X-Acto knife also helps, something that you probably have around the house already, or you can pick up for around $3 to $5 at Walmart, just something to think about. I don't think you need the X-Acto knife if you have the clippers and the file. And like I said, they come with the paint and tools set box for around $38. And it also comes with 13 pots. I think there's a couple technicals in there, but I think there's at least 8 or 9 like base and layer paints for you to sit there and play with and learn how to paint with. There's a lot of good colors in the box. It's made to paint Necron and Ultramarines. They also make 2 other options. Let's see, what are they? There's the Necron Warriors paint set, and that's $30, $29.75, and that comes with 3 little miniatures and a brush as well. Also, I should mention the paint and tools set box comes with I believe a little brush. It might be it's either a number 1 or a 0. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'll have to. I profess that I rarely use that brush, and I figure since it's an official Warhammer brush, I mainly use it for applying decals onto my models. I really haven't used it for painting. I'll go into brushes in a little bit. But these some of these paints and tool set boxes online can save you a lot of money, and that's what I did. I ended up buying one of these so I could get the tools, and I could get some paints to play around with right off the bat, and it was a really good deal. Let's see, brushes. All right, now that we've talked about paints. And like I said, we're going to average the paint total out around $78. So brushes. I recommend going to an art store and trying to find a nice brush set with a good array in it. And I would definitely recommend buying a brush set with a number 2 brush. I really like using a number 2 brush. If you only want to buy 2 brushes for Warhammer, I'd probably go with. I mean, if other people have other opinions, fine, great. What's worked for me has been a number 2 brush and a 00 brush. I use the number 2 brush for doing most of the big work, the leg work with the painting, and then for my fine detailing, I use a 00. Occasionally, I'll use a 000 if I really have to just put that eyeball in, or I'm getting really scared with a bauble on a space elf. So, but yeah, I really like the number 2 brush. I think that's it's a good brush for layering and putting on tints and shades and things like that. And it's a good brush to learn control with. And I think a 00 is a really good detail brush, and learning how to use one of those and not panicking and having to go down smaller and ruining other brushes because you just didn't have the patience to learn to to use the 00. I think that will hinder you in the end. Like I bought a set of brushes at the art store. I think it contained about 6 or 7 brushes for around $15. And then I went on Amazon and I found a set of brushes for around $6.99. Now they're up to $7.69. The same brushes. They're Toyon Dona micro detail paint brushes. They're wolf hair brushes for art painting miniatures, acrylic, watercolor, oil. And it comes with 3 brushes in the kit for just under $8. And it comes with a 000, a 00, and a 0. The 0 I'll use occasionally, mainly if there's like just a really big mess up and I have to fix it quick. I'll dip the 0 in the water, shove it in the crack where a technical slipped into, or a shade just went out of control, or I slipped on my brush, or something made me laugh, heaven forbid, while I'm painting. And I will say that while I after 4 months of painting with the 00 brush, the tip is destroyed. I didn't buy a sable hair. I went with this wolf hair brush. Like I said, I'm glad I did. Some people will say start off with the sable and just learn how to use it. I'd say no. Start off with something like wolf hair, and when you learn, how to paint, and you look at your brush and you're like, wow, I ruined this, and then you get to learn how to take control and take care of your brush, and those things don't happen overnight, and you can slip and you can make mistakes, and your brush is going to go haywire, and maybe one night you forget to get all the Mephiston red out of the damn thing, and the next day it's there's oh gosh, there's a stain of red in in your wraith bone. So just things like that to think about. But like I said, get yourself a couple micro brushes, and like I said, this Toyon Dona micro detail paintbrush set of wolf hair, and like it has a 0, a 00, and a 000 in it, and it's absolutely great for painting micro detail. And then you can find plenty of brush sets on Amazon in the $15 to $20 range with quite the array. I would go with a smaller array, a brush that you can do some big layering with, a brush that would be good for dry brushing, which is a technique that I use quite often when painting miniatures. But like I said, you want to try and find yourself just a small, nice kit. Don't spend a lot of money. Spend about $15 on a set, and then maybe go online and order yourself a nice set for around of like a 0, a 00, and a 000, a wolf hair from the lovely people at Toyon Dona micro detail paint brushes, and get that $7.69 love like I did. So let's put brushes at right around $20. I'd say you can probably, if you actually go to an art store, you'll probably pay less than what you'll be paying online. And I think that's the way to go. And then like I said, I would definitely order myself a set of brushes for micro detailing online, where they are just so much cheaper than in any art store or any hobby store. So around $20. Let's put that at around $20. File kits can cost anywhere from $5 to $50, which again is another reason why I think the getting started paint kit from Games Workshop is such a great thing, because you don't have to buy a file kit, and you don't have to buy small pliers, and So let's see here. Some maths I want to do here. Real quick. Let's just go back to the cost of minis. So for the army I bought, let's see if I can remember what it is I picked up. Games Workshop prices. Combat Patrol would be about 150. And then I bought I believe a Harlequin unit. Let's see. A Wraith Lord. An Eldrad. And then I bought a Wraith Blade. So that would be 150 for the Combat Patrol. And then, let's see, 60 for the Wraith Lord. 45 for the Harlequin unit. 35 for the Eldrad. And then 60 for the Wraith Guard that I used the kit to convert into a Wraith Blade. So that'd be about $350 if I bought my minis from Games Workshop. Amazon right now, if I was to buy the exact same thing, it would come out to $306. So, I mean, I'm saving $44. And that's like with Prime free shipping and such. Saving, myself $44 over Games Workshop, and that's before Games Workshop even factors in shipping if you're buying it online or taxes if you're buying it in store. Here, once again, in the Americas. Alright, and let's see. Me, I paid around $289. I paid $118 for the Combat Patrol, $39 for the Wraith Lord. If you don't have to pay $60 for a Wraith Lord at Games Workshop prices. Trust me, you can find one for around $39, $40. I think Amazon right now has them listed for around $53. And then the Harlequin unit is $45, I think, just about everywhere. Eldrad, I paid $27 at a hobby shop. He's going for $35 in Workshop and $35 on Amazon. And then the Wraith Guard is, or the Wraith Blade, whatever, is $60 all around. So Games Workshop right now for all the miniatures to get me up to 1,000 points would have been around $350. We're not factoring paints or anything like that. We're just miniatures. And then if I go to Amazon right now, it would be about $306. I paid around $289 between shopping, hobby shops, Amazon, and the Games Workshop store. So, oh boy, which number should we use here? Let's go with the Amazon number. I'm going to put the Amazon number into the factor of our final equation at about 306. And that'll be, we'll say 306 for, around 1,000 points. And I mean, you can slide that scale up to, 320 or down to, 275, depending on what deals you find. Or, I mean, there are people trying to sell armies on eBay for fortunes, and then other people trying to sell the exact same army just to get rid of it, and the paint jobs are 400 times nicer. So pick your poison. Let's see here. All right, paint total. We're gonna go with $78, and once again, like I said, $20 for the primer, $30 for the paint pots, and then $28 for the technical pots. So $78 altogether there. And then brushes, we're gonna go $20. And then, all right, between the file kit and the small angled pliers, file kits, like I said, can be anywhere from $5 to $50. I would recommend going to a hardware store and finding one that you think is small enough and that will fit your need to file it off. You don't want one that's going to just shred your model, but you don't want one that's going to make it so you have to go over it 100 times and it's going to sit there and groove out a shoulder. So you need to make sure that you're getting a file that works specifically for what you are trying to do. I don't think you have to pay, the 15 to 25 for the Citadel Games Workshop tool, but I think the tool that comes in the starter kit is perfectly reasonable. Um, and then for small angled pliers, lower end at a hardware store, they're $7 to $12. Higher end, they're $30 to $40. I put $70 to $30 on the estimates, and so we're just gonna go between the file kit, small angled pliers, and let's throw glue in there. Because you can get glue if you go to a model store and get model glue for like model airplanes or trains. It's going to be $6, $7. If you go through Amazon, it's going to be 13. If you go through the hobby shops, it can be as much as 20. So let's throw the extra supplies in there. I know I had said 20 earlier, but we'll go 25 now, just calculating in the glue. And that'll bring the grand total up. So 306 for the miniatures for a 1,000-point army. Roughly around $78 for the paint. You don't have to buy all. I mean, like, you can use 3 colors, but I would definitely recommend sticking with like a base design of 3 colors, and then maybe getting 2 or 3 pots to detail with, and then learning how to use technicals, things like Known Oil, Earthshade. There's just so much that you can do with those, and it can make your models go from just look like everybody else's models to like, wow, there's just a lot of effort and flavor, and like Known Oil can make things look so grungy. Earthshade can really add a lot of texture to your bases. Just little things like that. I think that 78 isn't an unreasonable amount to think that you're going to pay buying a can of primer and pots of paint and a few technicals. Brushes, try and stay in the $20 range. Like I said, go to an art shop and find yourself a nice kit that, like I said, I would definitely recommend one with a number 2 brush, maybe like a flat number 4 brush for just basing. So you can just, sit there and slap that paint on real quick after you get the primer on. And then Amazon is definitely the place I would go to get myself some micro brushes to paint miniatures, and a 00 brush would definitely be my recommendation for a detail brush. And like I said, I bought mine in a kit with a 0, a 00, and a 000. And when my 00 finally started to fray on me after about 4 months, I started using the 000 until my next 00 came in. And maybe one of these days I'll be brave enough or have enough money to actually go out and feel confident to buy a sable brush and blow $30 to $40 on a number 2, and $20 to $30 on a 00, because those would probably be the first 2 I'd get. But like I said, those are the 2 important brushes to pay attention to. I think that learning how to use that number 2 brush and applying paint with it, and what your margin of error with that is absolutely critical to painting. And then a good 00 brush for detailing is really good. So I figured in $20 for paint brushes. Don't go crazy, because like I said, you're gonna damage your brushes. It's something that's gonna happen. You're gonna spill pots of paint too. That's something that's gonna happen. Those are things that have to be factored in. The first time I primed something on my own, one of my passes I went a little thick, and I had to do a lot of buffing of that layer and doing other things to make that layer not look like it had too much primer put on. So, I mean, you're going to mess things up. And brushes are something that you're going to mess up. So try to stick to around $20. For supplies, try to stick to, like I said, the pliers, the glue, the file. try to keep it right around the $25 range. All in all, it comes out to around $429. Would be, I'd say, about the estimated base cost to get into this hobby. So next time you got an extra, 450 laying around, and you feel like waiting a month to, slaughter your friends on a tabletop, this is definitely a good investment for you. I'd say, like I said, 306 is a rough estimate of what I spent for minis, or what I would have paid if I bought the minis that I bought, over the period of the last, 4 months. Currently on Amazon, it'd be around $306, $78 for the paints, and then $20 for the brushes, and then $25 for the supplies. And like I said, that comes out to around $429. So like I said, I would give myself about $450 to $500 for the hobby if I was really thinking about getting into this. A couple other things I want to talk about. Things that you do not need. A model holder. They're about $13 to $20, and you do not need them. When you start painting, you're going to make a mess. You are going to paint all over your hand. I painted my one of my I can't think of the names right off the top of my head, but one of my Eldari units. And as my hands were there was just black and gold and red and a little bit of blue even, and flesh tone just smeared all over my fingertips. And I said, gee, and my buddy was like, hey, did you get a paint holder? I said, no. So he got one, and I asked him to order me one when he ordered his. And I used it for a lot of things, but it is not essential. You do not need a base mini model holder. First off is you can cut a dowel and a piece of blue tack. I mean, you can flip upside down like an old prescription bottle or like a aspirin bottle. You can flip that upside down, put some blue tack or some sticky tape on it, and then you can literally use that to hold your model. It's you don't need to spend a lot of money on something like that. And there's a lot of times where I'm putting so much detail on my model that I take it off the damn thing. It has its benefits. Like, I mean, it's ballast but I mean, I've been batch painting gene stealers, some pure strain gene stealers, and to keep taking them on and off the model holder is such a pain in the ass. So I've just been I just would pick them up, paint it, and then I've been saving my egg cartons. I'm a cheapskate, and I've been after I paint them, I rest them in one of the cleaned out plastic egg cartons for them to dry for their next coat or layer or detail or whatever it is I'm working on. I hopefully will be able to finish up these pure strain gene stealers. I've been painting all 20 of these little monsters, and once I get done with them, I'm going to start working on a gene stealer combat patrol. So yeah, you'll get to hear me talk about that. Yay! But a model holder, yeah, I do not think it is an essential part of this hobby to have a model holder. There are cheaper alternatives than the Citadel one, but the Citadel one is nice if you wanted a model holder. Or if you have shaky hands, it's just it will definitely be a help for the hobby, for sure. Let's see, what else? Expensive brushes. Don't fall into that trap early on. Don't go into the Games Workshop store and sit there and buy a bunch of $30, $20 and $30 brushes. You do not need to do that. Like I said, I can't repeat myself enough. If you don't have a good art store, look up online reviews for brushes for miniature paintings. There are two brands, I don't know them off the top of my head, that are just recommended by a lot of high-level painters. So there are, really good brushes out there, but that's not what I think you need at an introductory level. Go out, find yourself a nice soft kit with some long hair brushes and use those, and then go online and find yourself a nice cheap pair of wolf hair detailing brushes and start off with those. They will not let you down. My miniatures do not. I mean, they're not great. Like I said, I'm not winning a golden demon this year. But for a person who's been painting for 4 months, I'm learning and I'm doing good. Let's see, what else? What are some other things? Sandpaper. Some people will say that you need sandpaper and you need sand blocks. I don't think that those are essential things. I've never used sandpaper. I have used a file rigorously. I've used an X-Acto knife. I have never used sandpaper on my 40K models. Another don't need. This is a controversial one because I know I've had a lot of people and they're that don't have them say, "Oh boy, I wish I had this," and I've had other people saying that, "Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread." I've made 2 of them. I haven't bought a professional one, just so we are clear, but I've gone online and followed instructions on how to make 2 of them and done both of them twice, tested both of them twice. You do not need a wet palette. I'm going to say that right now. That is not an essential part of miniature painting. A wet palette is not. It takes a lot of if you've been painting without one, and then go to use one, it's gonna fudge you all up. It's gonna frustrate you. I'm not saying that they're not good or that you can't use them or that the people that use them are fools. I'm just saying I'm a fool who can't use them, and you do not need one to paint your miniatures, especially not when you are starting off in this hobby. In fact, I would suggest, if you are interested in a wet palette, I would suggest going online and looking up instructions on how to make a wet palette and trying to make a wet palette before you buy one. You will find that the ones that you make are almost identical in most material to the ones that you will be able to purchase, and therefore it's not hard to fabricate the experience of what a professional wet palette will do for you. So that's just something else I think that maybe you really just you don't need. Some should-haves. Let's go over that. Wow, I think the first thing I mentioned in the don't needs was the model holder. But maybe you should have a model holder, especially when starting off, because you know what? It can be a messy hobby. I think that when you get into the hobby and you start batch painting, the mini holder is just not going to do you any favors, because you're just going to want to just quack, it's going to take more effort to pull this thing in and out of the the mini holder than it ever will painting it, and it's a pain in the ass. I just want to pick up my mini, go to Paint Town with it, put it back in the egg crate, pick up the next one, and just keep going down the assembly line until all my pure strain Gene Stealer tongues are pink. Just as an example. But like I said, I mean it can certainly help you in the beginning of the hobby. Do I think you need to buy the one from Games Workshop or the Citadel one rather? No, not at all. I think you can, like I said, use a dowel and blue tack, which brings me to my next should have, blue tack. I went to prime some Harlequins and like an idiot, I didn't anchor them and just shot them across my basement at the time because it was too damp outside to paint. So I went to prime them and literally shot my Harlequins into outer space. So I had to grab mini uh, vices and use those to peg down my Harlequin unit to prime them. I told my friend this anecdote, and a couple days later, when we were playing Magic the Gathering, he threw me a thing of blue tack and said, "Next time you prime, use these." And it made priming on a 2x4 so much easier. Which brings me to my next thing, a 2x4. You can use an old ruler, a 2x4, an old, chair leg or a table leg if it's flat enough. I think originally when I started priming, I was using an old shelf and putting things in a horseshoe pattern and priming that way. But I think a 2x4 works best because you can spray on one side, pretty evenly, and then you can just let it sit for 15 minutes, spray the other side, and then if you want to lighten up the shadows underneath it, you can actually flip the 2x4 right on its side with the model still blue tacked to it. I would not recommend using painter's tape. I've done that in the past. And painter's tape can blow loose, whereas blue tack I've never had any issue with. At least not for that purpose. So should haves. A model holder is something to think about. Like I said, once again, it's not a don't. It's a don't need, but it's also a should have. It's kind of that that gray area. All the other stuff on this should haves are should haves. Blue tack, a 2x4, a good light. I bought some USB LED lights, and they're clamp lights, and wherever I'm painting, I just bring them, and I can throw them into like a phone charger jack or just any USB or a USB charger stick, and I have a great portable lantern to sit there and paint with. I would definitely recommend like getting like a desk lamp or like a clamp light like I have, or like a OT light, maybe overkill, and they can be a bit pricey because they're for specifically for hobbies. But like I said, I think a simple clamp light for around $10 to $15 off of Amazon will do you just fine. And what else? What else is a good thing to have? Hemostats. These are awesome. I have a roll of painter's tape that I also keep with my supplies. And I took a piece of painter's tape, folded it over, and I put it in an angled hemostat and cinched it closed. This was awesome for when I was painting my Harlequins. I assembled them and then realized that they've got some pretty gnarly poses and some pretty, flowing fabric and swords. So I would take the hemos and hold that in one hand, and then I would hold it behind, or I would hold it against the model, so I could paint the backside of a sword or the ribbon coming off of a bandana, or a trench coat or a boot. And the hemostat with, like I said, just a little 1.5-inch piece of blue painter's tape in there has made it so I don't have to sit there and do a half dozen extra touch-ups on every model. Also, I took a pair of straight hemos and put painter's tape on either side of them. Certain models are easier to paint detail on while assembling. My Farseer, I painted and then assembled, and I did the exact same thing with my Eldrad, where he was primed and painted in pieces and then assembled slowly. Sometimes it's hard to hold those smaller pieces. Now, if you have a piece of painter's tape covering either side of a pair of flat hemostats, you can say pick up Eldrad's head and stare at it, put it under the light, and paint the details on it without getting paint everywhere. And then you can just take Eldrad when you're done painting it and rest him, or his head at least, on your palette. A palette, that's a don't need. And I'm going to tell you why. When I started this hobby, the person who trained me to paint was simply using a flipped over clear plastic to-go lid that they had cleaned out really nicely. And so my first paint palette was a flipped over to-go lid. Now, if you're like me and my significant other, you probably eat out once, or maybe I should admit this, maybe more than once a week. Save your lids, clean them off really nice with some dish soap, and after you've cleaned them off, like I said, I'd probably give them about 2 rinse overs with some really hot water and some dish soap, and then after that, let it dry out, and then take rubbing alcohol and clean the surface out really nice. So you make sure there's no oils or anything left over in the plastic, because plastic's porous. And those are absolutely amazing paint palettes. I had another friend show me something else that they did, and it was awesome. They went down to Home Depot. They bought a tile for I think it was I think it's about an 8-inch by 3-inch tile, and they used that as a palette. And they told me when they went that they were a little disappointed that that was the only size that they had. Later on, I went out and I bought pallets. I say. I went out and I bought tiles for everybody I play Warhammer with, and I got us all 6-inch by 10-inch floor tiles. The tiles themselves, we use white tiles, and they have a gloss finish to them. You don't want like a porous floor tile or anything like that, because it will just stain and it will be hell to clean, and the porous nature of it can ruin your brush, cause paint to get stuck, cause your paint to gloop up. So if you're going to go like the tile route, I mean, that's like the ones I got, I think were $3 a piece. My buddy paid $2 a piece, for the one that he got. So, I mean, palettes are not something that you need to buy for this hobby. I can't stress that enough. Like, that's something that, like I said, I used, flipped over to-go lids. And now I'm using a $3, maybe it was $4, I can't remember. But needless to say, let's just go with $4. For $4, I got a paint palette. And then when I'm done painting, I just let it dry for about 7 or 8 hours, and I probably don't even need to let it dry for that long. I grab a straight razor blade, and then I just scrape the paint right off the tile. And then once the tile is flat and there's no bumps from any paint left over, I will wipe it down with a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a paper towel, just to make sure that there's no leftover pigmentation that could affect the color of paints that you'll put on afterwards. So, I mean, yeah, you do not need a palette. I think that's kind of a farce. And like I said, the wet palette, maybe I'm just not ready to handle the wet palette, but I also don't think that that's something that you necessarily need. Well, oh my gosh, I've certainly done a lot of talking. I guess that's what a podcast is for. I hope you found this podcast entertaining, and now you know the cost of Warhammer. If you want to get into it, why don't you let's go with $500. Why don't we say that's the That's the introductory level. That'll be our final conclusion here on the 40K Parley, Book 1, Chapter 2, The Real Cost of Warhammer. And let's go with $500 is the bare minimum that you should expect to pay. And clearly, we've proved just by running some numbers here that, I mean, for around $429 you can pick up the supplies I got. Things I didn't cover: carrying cases, ways to transport your minis once you have them, your paints. I mean, you can put them in a shoebox, but I mean, there are other alternatives to paints as well. There are other things to think about. I think $500 is a reasonable and realistic starting point for this hobby. So, you want to play Warhammer? $500. And a lot of time. A lot of time. Wait till you mess up gluing the first time, and now you have this odd Band-Aid-esque texture on the shoulders of one of your combat patrol. Anyways, this is a hobby for us to have fun with, to enjoy. Like I said, I got the Patreon. Let me know what you want me to put up there for content on the Patreon. I'm definitely open to suggestions. If you have ideas for episodes that you'd like to hear about the hobby, I mean, I'm willing to listen to that too. May not happen, but I mean, whatever. Hell, I'll listen to you. Sure. Feel free to, complain about how I pronounce everything wrong and how prices fluctuate, and I messed something up in my math, and there's no way that, my combat patrol can, plus the miniatures that I mentioned, can equal 1,000 points. And I love trolls. Oh boy, do I love trolls. Man, if if I was gonna play Sigmar, I'd buy giants and I'd paint them all like freaking trolls. Anyways, this has been the 40K Parley, Book 1, Chapter 2, The Cost of Playing Warhammer 40K, and like I said, we're going to conclude that it's $500. If you want to get into this hobby, it's going to be around $500. We'll stick with that. Anyways, I'm Red, aka Lord Red Dog, and take care. Feel free to support us on Patreon. Give us a subscribe on YouTube, because currently that's the only place that we're posting the podcast. I hope you like it. I hope you like the artwork. I hope you like the music, and I hope to hear from you. And I hope you like the podcasts. All right, take care of yourself.